Just described created big backups downtown, and there were also crashes on the other side of the bridge in North Fort Myers.
Yeah, so let's check in with Trent because he's monitoring traffic as well. I know obviously we saw the traffic slowing on the bridge, but what about those little side streets in North Fort Myers?
Things finally getting better. Some good news to report. All morning long we were looking at the south side of that bridge there where traffic, the edge of the bridge, the police officer was diverting everyone onto Edwards there towards the Fort Myers Yacht Basin near the Oxbow restaurant, and now you can see traffic is moving over the bridge. All three lanes are open, and we are getting some better reports now as that crash and the cleanup continues. Even the 41 bridge there where we had backups that went all the way up through Pondella, where we had a crash at River Road. Now Bayshore looking a little smoother as well. This was all red this morning going all the way back towards the interstate as we had accidents all around Southwest Florida. We've even got some better news out towards Colonial and 82. Now there was one crash here that had areas of Leland Heights Boulevard closed down, and it looks like that crash has been allowed to clear. So as we switch gears here from traffic to your forecast, things this morning obviously a little rocky, and you can't help but think that some of that was weather related early this morning.
Okay, so if it was weather related, the crashes are cleared up. Does that mean the skies are clear as well?
Yeah, we got some clouds, but the rain is tapering off. What we've got left of that rain is right here south of Lake Okeechobee between I-75 and US 27, and what's left of that will continue to dissipate here as that front tries to move out of here. It's going to be a slow mover, so even though the rain is tapering off, the cloud's going to be around for a while as we got a much cooler day. But you can see I-75 out towards Lehigh looking a little better. So if you haven't stepped outside yet, we're in the upper 60s. We're not going to go to the low 70s today as our temperatures are going to be rather steady through the afternoon, and it's all due to this north wind, which is picking up. It'll be 10 to 15 miles per hour, a gust of 20 today, and you see those clouds just to our south even through the evening hours. So as you step outside here later on today, going to be a little windy, a little bit cooler. Our temperature is just a few below our average of 75, but a much cooler night on the way. We'll talk about that in the weekend coming up here in just a bit.
All right, sounds good, Trent. Well, if you live in certain parts of Lee County, there is a hurricane debris deadline coming up. We want to let you know about it. It's for several different areas, so they're listed there on your screen. If you live in one of these areas, the county is asking you to put your storm debris out on the curb by Monday, February 13th. Again, that's storm-related debris. This does not include Matlacha or St. James City. Now, if you live on Sanibel Island, you got a little bit longer. You have until February 20th to set any storm-related debris out on the curb for pickup.
This morning, we want to bring you a story of resiliency, how a group of people built back after Hurricane Ian and are now on the track to success again. It just so happens to involve one of the most important industries here in Southwest Florida, and we'll give you some perspective on that in just a minute. But we want to start our story by going back to the first week or so after the hurricane. Fox 4's Alexandra Rangel went to St. James City. Now, at the time, there was no road on to Pine Island. She came here to Sun Shrimp Farm, a business that, as you can see, was badly damaged. It lost 100,000 pounds of shrimp in the storm. Well, yesterday, Alex was able to drive onto the island, and the outlook here was completely different.
I tell you, it just really, the storm really hit us pretty hard.
But they came back harder, from broken tents to damaged tanks and dead shrimp.
Wow.
Sun Shrimp owner Robin Pearl walked us inside the 8-acre greenhouse.
Our shrimp, they need warm weather, and right now it's, even though it's cooler outside, it's nice in here.
It's warm, I can feel it.
Yeah.
Almost 4 months since Ian, and Sun Shrimp is breeding some healthy shrimp.
They're looking at the quality, make sure that it has good antennas, make sure the animal's healthy.
They're now starting to see the fruits of all the hard labor it took to keep the shrimp that survived Ian alive.
Is that a male or female?
That's a male.
That's a male, so you can see the male. It has two little sperm packages right here.
Production manager Catherine Lipson makes sure the shrimp are getting fed, that oxygen levels are good, and that water is pristine.
Before we had no roofs, not a lot of metal, all the tanks were exposed.
She says the season has been a successful one.
We saved a lot of shrimp as well, so we were still able to have our big brood stock season, still able to process for the plant, so it's really great what we're able to do.
Pearl says they started shipping to customers in early December.
All those tanks have been restocked, and our hatchery is working again, and so we're busy stocking all our tanks. So it's.
Are you back to the levels you once were?
I think by the end of this month we will be, yeah. So a couple more stockings, then we'll be pretty much full.
But the work doesn't end.
They're still working in tanks and they're still fixing tanks. Like you see over here, you see some tanks that have no liner in it.
Like many in Southwest Florida who are in the rebuilding phase, he's looking to build better and stronger. Like this greenhouse built with cement walls. It survived Hurricane Ian, and Pearl says it's the future.
Now that we know that this model works, we want to build hundreds of these tanks.
As he celebrates the resilience Sun Shrimp has shown.
Given the fact that this was right in the heart of the storm and the hurricane, I feel very, very lucky.
And there was never a doubt in his mind.
But we have proven that we can survive.
Just like the shrimp that persevered through the storm, he says survival is in their DNA. Reporting in Pine Island, Alexandra Rangel, Fox 4.
What a great comeback story. Now let's take a minute to put all of that into perspective, because what's good for that company is good for the Southwest Florida economy. Let's start with the big picture here. The newest numbers from Florida Fish and Wildlife show the state produces $237 million worth of seafood a year, and the biggest seller is shrimp at nearly $52 million. A big chunk of that comes from Lee County. In 2018, Lee County produced nearly $18 million worth of seafood. That was second in the entire state. And take a look at your screen. Collier and Charlotte counties are also in the top 23 largest seafood producing counties in Florida. That's why this is important. You just heard Sun Shrimp Farm say they are almost completely back to where they were before the storm. You can see all of our hurricane recovery stories when you go to our website, fox4now.com.
A Lee County man will be going to prison for 3 years for beating a dog at a Fort Myers gas station. You might remember the video. We showed it to you last year. It shows Marcus Chittister repeatedly punching his dog, according to detectives. The dog's name was Sheba. Well, after Chittister was arrested, a vet examined Sheba and found several injuries that showed that she had been beaten. The Lee County Sheriff's Office won custody of Sheba a couple months after this happened.
Well, this morning, some people who live in Cape Coral are demanding that something be done about an intersection that they say is dangerous.
Yeah, so they're worried in particular about the stretch of Burnt Store Road that intersects with Tropicana Parkway, and the numbers show that crashes are up there.
Yeah, here's what Cape Coral police tell us. Since 2020, when work was done to split the median there, crashes went from 14 a year to 30 last year, and there have been 10 crashes at that intersection less than 1 month into this year. People who live here tell Fox 4 there has to be something that can be done to make it safer. We took those concerns to Lee County, and a spokesperson told us the county monitors all new intersections, and if changes need to be made, the county says it will make them.
Well, this morning we're watching the wind shift out of the north, all thanks to the cold front that brought us some early morning rain. We're still tracking just a few showers through the central part of the state. We'll let you know what's in store for the rest of your Thursday coming up in just a minute.
Well, there is a plan to help you if you rent your home. We know prices are very high right now. What the White House says it wants to do to tackle the price increase across the country. Plus, 10:09 right now. Let's get you a quick check of traffic hotspots.
I totaled my truck. It was a really gnarly accident. I called Fair and Fair first, and then from there it went very fast. My legal team, they were like bulldogs. They just didn't take no for an answer. It just made me feel like I was really dealing with professionals.
At 10:13, here's a look at some of the top stories we're tracking for you right now. The U.S. economy grew at a pace of 2.9% in the last quarter of 2022. That's despite higher interest rates. That was down slightly from the third quarter of last year. Analysts will study the GDP carefully to determine whether the economy is sliding into a recession. Senators from both parties are demanding to see classified documents that were recovered from President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. Members of the Intelligence Committee in the Senate threatened to bring the chamber's business to a standstill until that happens. The National Archives is considering sending letters to former presidents and vice presidents to make sure they don't have any more classified documents. Mortgage rates are down for the first time this year. Freddie Mac says a 30-year fixed mortgage was 6.33% last week, but that is still much higher than it was a year ago when it was below 3.5%.
Well, the White House has announced a new plan to fight rising rent prices. The Biden administration says federal agencies will work to make sure the rental housing market is fair and gives tenants at least 30 days notice before a landlord can terminate a lease for non-payment. Another agency would look at limiting what it calls egregious rent increases. We all know that rent prices obviously have gone up a lot since over the past 2 years.
Cooler temperatures are here in Southwest Florida. Let's bring in Fox 4 certified meteorologist Trent Eric, but only for a couple of days we're going to see those cooler temperatures, right?
Yeah, a day or two, and then we go right back up over the weekend. It looks like we're going to be there for a bit. But today, if you haven't stepped outside yet, it's kind of gloomy. It was wet early, and it's going to take a while to shake the cloud cover. And all this is that front we were talking about for the last couple of days. It arrived overnight, and most of the rain now is really tapering off. We're a lot drier along State Road 29 and I-75. So from Naples northbound, we're looking good. And you can see what's left of a few light showers between Estero and Miramar Lakes. Along the Caloosahatchee, we're dry. And that helped to clean up crews there on the accident at Fowler and First on the south side of the Edison Bridge. And we're still hanging on to just a little bit of rain there between Clewiston and Pahokee. So as the radar quiets down, we'll focus on our temperatures, which right now are in the upper 60s. And later on today, we'll see them in the low 70s at best. Right now, compared to where we were 24 hours ago, it's about a 10 to 15 degree drop. And that's because our winds have done a complete 180. Yesterday, we had wind gusts over 30 miles per hour out of the south, a warm one. And then you see our temperatures now are going to fall because of that north wind, which will settle in here between 10 to 15 miles per hour. And we're going to see the gust upwards of 20. So not quite as windy as yesterday, but it's going to feel a lot different as we have that cool breeze move through. You see the breezy, cool conditions, temperature 73, your sunset at 6:05, and that average of this time of year is 75. So we won't be too far off of it. And tonight, our temperatures will fall in the upper 40s, nowhere near that record low of 27 set back in 1905. We do have some cooler temperatures across the eastern seaboard as we have a pair of cold fronts. The first one is the one that's impacting our weather, and the parent low is bringing a wintry mess here, finally tapering down in Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and we've got a secondary little skiff of snow there in Ohio. Now, as far as we're concerned, this front is going to kind of put on the brakes here today. We'll see a little bit of sunshine attempt to break through later, but then the clouds, we're going to be right there on the battleground of that front lifting back to the north on Friday, and that will allow us to be a little gloomy here. And by the weekend, we get back on the south side of that front, and that will put us in the warm sector, and we'll get our temperatures back in the 80s pretty quickly. So for today, you see the clouds hanging out in the southern part of the state. They start to lift back north tomorrow, and that will allow for our temperatures only to be in the upper 60s as that cool air dives across the eastern half of the U.S. But later in the weekend, ridge pushes back in, and it's going to hold on strong, and what that will do is quickly get us up above average. We're talking about 10 degrees above average both overnight and in the afternoon hours. Now today, seas 4 to 6 feet as your inland waters will be rough. Your water temperature there at 68. So the forecast for today, temperatures don't move a whole lot. Tonight they drop, though, in the 40s. And as we look ahead at your 7-day forecast, we're getting closer and closer to the weekend. And by Saturday, we'll rebound about 10 degrees and eventually up in the mid 80s. We're talking about mid to upper 80s for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. And even though the temperatures are increasing over the weekend, still going to be breezy. We'll still see those winds 15 gusting up to 20 both Saturday and Sunday.
Bans in Florida public schools have some parents and teachers concerned. We're sitting down with some of them to talk about how they think this could affect their kids. Well, Governor DeSantis is pushing for banning certain books in public schools, but some teachers, students, and parents, they're raising concerns.
Reporter Eric Waxler from our Scripps station WFTS in Tampa met two moms in Pinellas County who are worried about the impact those restrictions will have on their children.
You have the right to restrict your child's ability to read that material. You can go in and certainly say that your child cannot read that, but my problem is that you are restricting my child's ability to read that book and understand someone else's life experience.
Removing the bluest eye from schools comes after a complaint from a parent at Palm Harbor University High. That parent tells ABC Action News she felt the material was inappropriate and is glad the district took her concerns seriously. The district has now reviewed 94 books since the summer and removed 11 of them from classrooms and school libraries.
I'm concerned because I have students who are about to hit high school, and I want them to be competitive when they apply for college. And we're looking at classes like AP and like IB, and I know that my students need challenging books.
These latest issues have come up since the governor signed new guidelines into law updating the procedures for approving materials in schools. Those guidelines include banning content deemed pornographic or inappropriate for the grade level. A certified media specialist at each school is in charge of approving the books. At last night's Pinellas County School Board meeting, board member Stephanie Meyer said she supports book critiques.
At the end of the day, we have to remember that we are talking about minors. These are minors. And that matters. And I think that needs to be the bottom line.
In Manatee County, the confusion over what's allowed in classroom libraries led some teachers to initially cover their bookshelves with construction paper, although the district said that was not necessary. One parent said at last night's school board meeting she'd be glad to help the teachers vet the books.
When I started reading some of these books, I was mortified. I would have pulled my children out of school had I seen that kind of filth.
Pat Barber heads up the teachers union in Manatee County and says she's working with teachers and the district to clarify requirements under the law. She says teachers are trained to know what's appropriate for students.
The conversation has taken place between parents, teachers, and sometimes parents, teachers, and students if it's appropriate for their age. That conversation has been derailed and interrupted by this law. And so every district is going to end up conforming in some way to the requirements of this law because severe penalties have been built in for individuals that do not comply.
Approved and available books will eventually be posted in a database on the school's websites. Teachers who violate the guidelines could face third-degree felony charges.
Well, this morning we've got a cold front sliding through southwest Florida. Brought a little rain, now some cooler temperatures. We got a chilly one on the way tonight. We'll let you know how cold coming up after the break.
Live from Southwest Florida, you're watching Fox 4 Morning News.
Welcome back. Right now, as we approach 1028, we're looking live here at First and Fowler. The reason this camera has been so important all morning long, if you're just waking up or joining us, the Edison Bridge was down to one lane. Traffic was backed up all the way into North Fort Myers and along Bayshore as we had an accident here that allowed for a spill. We had hydraulic fluid and they had to clean it up. They had to dump sand and get a bobcat in to remove it. Bottom line is people were stuck in this for hours this morning as traffic was diverted onto Edwards. I'm happy to report that the bridges are moving smooth as traffic is beginning to lighten up. It's almost lunchtime, right? And the accident stretched back towards Pondella and River Road this morning, and we had backups that went all the way along Bayshore towards I-75. We're starting to see a lot more green. This also includes 80 and Bayshore Road or Bayshore Drive, where we had an accident near Weber, and even our usual busy spots out towards Lehigh Acres, where we had an accident early this morning near Daniels. Everything is green, so happy to report things are much, much smoother. Let's get you a check of the forecast here by taking a look outside. It is gloomy as we are seeing most of the rain move on out. You can see right now from the Bayfront end down in Naples that cloud deck that's still with us. And as that continues to hang out here for the afternoon, sunshine will be limited. But once it breaks through a little bit, we'll see our temperatures go up just a touch in the low 70s. The radar is showing a much quieter picture. Just a couple of very small showers now left north of I-75 as we work our way north of Naples. You see, we're really looking pretty good. Our focus now goes from the rain to our temperatures, which right now are sitting in the mid to upper 60s. We'll see low 70s later on. You can see compared to where we were 24 hours ago, this is about 10 to almost 15 degrees cooler. So let me get you a check here of what we're expecting throughout the day. Temperature's not going to move much. We will talk about a cooler night on the way coming up here in just a bit.
Well, this morning, Collier County is getting ready to have what it calls a point-in-time count.
Right, so this count basically helps keep track of sheltered and unsheltered people who are experiencing homelessness. Fox 4's Alexander Runhall is live in Immokalee with more. Good morning.
Good morning. We just came back from doing outreach with a group of volunteers whose main focus today is to go out to the streets, to the hidden areas where there's people and help count them. Plus, they're directing them over here to the Church of Lady of Our Guadalupe here in Immokalee, where there's a lot of resources for them. Behind me, some haircuts happening. But first, I want to bring in a Michael Overway. Come in, Michael. Thank you so much for being with us. Michael is with the Hunger and Homeless Coalition of Collier County. Michael, just talk to me a little bit about the turnout that we're seeing today.
So we're seeing a good turnout today. We're really pleased with that. You know, I think part of the impact that we're having here in the community is really our community partners have done a great job of spreading the word of the event today, right? And a lot of folks out here are seeking services anywhere from veteran services to healthcare, mental health care, domestic violence. We have representatives from Naples Pride here today as well. So these agencies are really providing some critical basic human needs like clothing and hopefully shelter, you know, that we'll be able to get for some of the folks.
And tell me what's happening behind us. We have some haircuts happening.
Yeah, so every year, and this has been, you said it, Alex, right? This has been a big hit in the community, is the haircuts. And so we've got volunteers that come in and provide haircuts all day long for the folks. And so we're grateful. They give of their time to come in and do these things. And again, it acts as another draw, right? So we really want people to know that they have open access to all the services in the continuum of care in our with our community partners. And so this is just one way that we help to facilitate that.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, for being with us today. Just quickly look at the haircuts happening behind us. We have a line of people here waiting to get haircuts as well as other resources. Some of them are taking home cots, backpacks, anything that may be useful, especially for today that we have a cold, a little bit of chilly, rainy day. Again, this very important day today. We're so happy to be here. For now, reporting live in Immokalee, Alexander Hill, Fox 4.
All right, thanks for the update, Alex. This morning, day 2 of the murder trial of a once prominent South Carolina attorney is underway. Alex Murdaugh's case goes back to 2021 when Murdaugh's wife and son were found shot to death at one of the family's properties. Ivan Rodriguez is outside the courthouse with where we pick up today in court.
This morning, we expect the first witness in the trial to take the stand. All of this picking up a day after a powerful moment of opening statements. Opening statements in the Alec Murdaugh double murder trial began Wednesday with the state laying out its case against the disgraced South Carolina ex-lawyer.
You're going to hear other evidence from DNA, gunshot residue, firearms examiners. There's going to be a lot of forensic evidence in this case.
Murdaugh is charged in the 2021 murders of his wife Margaret and their youngest son Paul. Murdaugh has pleaded not guilty, claiming he was not at the home at the time of the murders and came home to find the pair shot to death near the kennels of their hunting property. Among the evidence from the state, a video that Paul recorded on his phone shortly before he was murdered, where you can allegedly hear his father's voice.
Told anyone who would listen he was never there. At 8:44, in 55 seconds, there's a video. The evidence will show that he was there.
Prosecutors claim Murdaugh killed them in order to hide a long list of alleged financial crimes, defrauding clients, co-workers, and family members out of nearly $9 million. Prosecutors also say neither victim had any defensive wounds and were shot at close range.
Neither one of them had any defensive wounds, as if they didn't see a threat coming from their attacker.
But Murdaugh's defense team says the state's case is weak and all based on theories.
There's no eyewitness. There's no forensics tying him to the murder. When I say forensics, fingerprints, blood, whatever, tying him to shooting anybody that night.
The defense attorney also describing the graphic nature of the killings. That was a moment where we saw Murdaugh become emotional. His attorney telling the jury to find Alec guilty, they'll have to accept that he would execute them in a brutal fashion. In Walterboro, South Carolina, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
Well, back here in Southwest Florida, Crime Stoppers is asking for your help this morning after a brazen wallet robbery, and all of it was caught on camera. So here's the video. This is from New Year's Day at Ember's Steakhouse, which is on College Parkway. Police say what you're looking at here is a woman rummaging around the front desk. You can see her reaching around the other side. What she found, they say, is a wallet. They say that she stuffs it under her shirt after she rummages around and then walks away. If she looks familiar to you, if you recognize this person, you are asked to call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-780-TIPS.
We have more security video for you that shows a guy stealing mail from a Florida business park. Camrell Eppinger from our script station WPTV in West Palm Beach shows us it's not the first time this has happened to those businesses.
It happened again.
It would have flown under the radar if not for capturing it on camera, because nobody would have known.
Another postal problem for business owners here at the Woodbine Commons Plaza along Military Trail and Riviera Beach.
After reviewing other cameras and different angles, it was pretty clear that this person was up to no good.
Joe Conway says on Tuesday he woke up to several notifications on his phone notifying him that someone was lurking right outside his business overnight.
And this is when he goes into our side of the mailbox.
His new surveillance camera rolling as a thief walks up and opens every mailbox with his own key.
He goes into the outgoing mail, and then he unlocks the tenant side and starts taking out incoming mail that wasn't picked up.
After 2.5 minutes, he stuffs his bag with several pieces of mail and he's gone.
You just don't know what you're missing when it's taken. You don't know what was sent to you, what you didn't receive.
Last month, surveillance cameras caught another suspect pulling into the parking lot, and moments later, he's seen walking back to his van with a handful of mail and packages.
These people really need to be caught and prosecuted and shown that this isn't something to mess around with. It's a federal crime to steal this stuff.
Now, I did reach out to the Postal Inspection Service and they confirmed that they are investigating this crime. They also tell me earlier this month, 2 men were arrested in West Palm Beach and charged with robbing a letter carrier for their master key.
10:36 is the time right now. Meta has announced it will reinstate former President Donald Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts.
Yeah, if you remember, it was just over 2 years ago the social media giant banned Trump from those two platforms. He was initially banned the day after the January 6th Capitol riots. Meta officials supported the ban over concerns that Trump's posts could incite further violence. The president of Meta Global Affairs says there will be new guidelines to help avoid repeat offenses, like the removal of content that violates platform policies and the potential for more suspensions. They say they could be 1 month suspensions all the way up to 2 years, depending on the violation.
We're trying to strike the right balance between free expression, free and open political debate, whilst at the same time making sure that for all the users who use Facebook and Instagram, it's an enjoyable experience.
All right, so he also says and pointed out that Meta is a private company. They say they have no interest in interfering with politics. Trump took to his own social media platform. It's called Truth Social. He did that yesterday, blasting Meta's decision to ban him in the first place. He has not said if he will, in fact, return to Facebook and Instagram.
Well, there's been a lot of debate about this, but Germany has agreed to send tanks to Ukraine to bolster its forces battling Russia. These are Leopard battle tanks, and since Germany decided to send them, it now wants other countries to pitch in and do the same. President Biden says the U.S. will do that. He has pledged to send 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine. Now, there is a difference between the two decisions. Germany says its tanks will be ready by the end of March, but the U.S. says it's going to take months before its tanks are ready to use. That's because of the amount of training it takes to operate them. On top of that, teaching engineers how to fix the Abrams tanks when they're out in the field. While some industries are struggling to fill job openings, that's not the case in the world of high-tech security.
Right. While the demand for cybersecurity experts is through the roof right now, the supply of professionals is actually pretty low.
Work as an IT, and I saw the growing needs for cybersecurity professionals.
A cybersecurity career tool website says there are only enough workers to fill 68% of the cybersecurity jobs employers need in the U.S. It also shows Florida is among the top 5 states with the highest number of job openings in cybersecurity, close to 40,000 of them. A professor at Palm Beach State College says the skyrocketing need for IT security guards can be attributed to more online banking and shopping and more people working remotely.
All right, it's 10:39 right now, and this morning we want to introduce you to someone very special. She survived world wars, the Spanish Civil War, the Spanish flu, and COVID-19.
Her name is Maria Morera, and at 115 years and 328 days old, the Guinness Book of World Records calls her the world's oldest living person.
Yeah, she stays humble in her old age, too, saying that she was surprised and grateful for this new title. Maria was born in San Francisco on March 4th, 1907, a year after her parents immigrated to the United States.
8 years later, the family decided to return to Spain, and Maria has lived there ever since. She looks great.
She's beautiful. Her new title comes after the death of 118-year-old French nun Lucille Rondon. She passed away last week.
We have a quick note for you on your morning commute this weekend in Collier County. Saturday, some of US 41 will be closed because of the annual Swamp Buggy Parade. That'll get started at 9:30. It'll be closed between Golden Gate Parkway and 3rd Avenue South. Roads will be closed until the parade ends.
It's Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, and coming up in today's Your Healthy Family, doctors say they're seeing a rise in late-stage cervical cancer, and I'm looking into why.
At 10:40, here's a look at traffic hotspots.
I totaled my truck. It was a really gnarly accident. I called Fair and Fair first, and then from there it went very fast. My legal team, they were like bulldogs. They just didn't take no for an answer. It just made me feel like I was really dealing with professionals.
January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, and one study shows late-stage cervical cancer is on the rise. In today's Your Healthy Family, I'm looking into why.
It turns out a rise in late-stage cervical cancer could be linked to the pandemic, but Cleveland Clinic's section head for gynecologic oncology says it could also be because of a change in guidelines for pap smears. Before, women were told to get them done annually. Now, it's every 3 years, and in some cases, every 5 years.
It's sort of hard to count by threes, and it's very easy to kind of lose track of when your pap smear was. And our guidelines are such that if it's done one way, then it's a slightly different screening protocol. So, and I think that may be one of the issues that has kind of led to an identification of more advanced cervix cancer that we're seeing in the United States.
Cervical cancer is cancer of the cells in the cervix, which is the lowest part of a woman's uterus. Early stages of cervical cancer don't usually have symptoms and can be hard to detect, making routine pap smears extremely important. The test helps identify any abnormal cells. Dr. DiBernardo says cervical cancer is preventable and is often caused by the sexually transmitted infection HPV. So he says testing for that is equally as important. He also recommends the HPV vaccine. Both men and women between the ages of 11 and 45 years old are eligible.
We developed a vaccine years ago. There's several on the market that are extremely effective at preventing cancer. In Australia, where uptake of vaccines are high, they're seeing a decrease in the amount of cervix cancer in that country.
Now, the CDC says there are about 13,000 new cases of cervical cancer diagnosed every year in our country and 4,000 deaths. For Your Healthy Family, I'm Lisa Greenberg, and for more information on the symptoms of later stage cervical cancer, head to fox4now.com/yourhealthyfamily.
Lisa, thank you. Today, FDA vaccine advisors will meet to talk about the future of COVID vaccination in our country. Right now, the U.S. offers two types of COVID vaccines, the primary series of shots followed by booster shots. And while nearly 70% of Americans have gotten that primary shot, just 15% have gotten the boosters. Since the original outbreak of the virus, a number of variants have challenged the system and the vaccines. FDA advisors are considering a shift to a once-a-year COVID shot that would be similar to the flu shot. The advisory committee will also look at how well the current booster shots are working. A CDC study released Wednesday found that boosters cut the risk of infection by about half.
All right, 10:46, let's get a check of your weather this morning. We started off with kind of a gray, gloomy day. We had that cold front push through. So, Trent, is this kind of going to be the status quo for the day, or are we looking for some sunshine?
Oh, we're looking for it. It just may be hard to find it later on today. It's going to try to break through this afternoon. This front isn't going to be one of those that moves through and clears us out. This one's going to put on the brakes and actually start to lift back to the north over the weekend. Let's take it hour by hour, though. Let's get you a check of the radar, where, boy, is it much improved now across southwest Florida. All the little rain showers are pretty much gone. You see the last few there between Miramar Lakes, Gateway, and Lehigh Acres. And the cloud cover is not going to go anywhere here for a bit. So as we look at our temperatures, we're in the mid to upper 60s with 70s now for Ochopee and Marco Island. Our forecast today keeps our temperatures pretty steady, and we should see our highs in the low 70s before we cool down overnight. Compared to where we were 24 hours ago, look at the difference, a 10 to 15 degree drop as that cold front is making its impact now. Yesterday it was breezy, it was windy as a matter of fact, but that wind was out of the south, brought in the humidity and the warmth. We saw it gusting up to 30. Now as we look at the wind, it's done a 180. It's out of the north, and that's going to bring in a completely different type of forecast here for today, as we'll see those winds anywhere from 10 to 15 miles per hour, and the gusts will get up to 20. So not quite as windy as yesterday, but still a little blustery. Your day planner calls for a high temperature of 73 as it's going to be breezy and cool, and your sunset time comes there at 6:05. As we look at your almanac, the record high on this date is 86, and we're going to be closer to those values by the time we get towards the weekend and early next week. But our record low on this date is 27. We'll be nowhere near that. That's a cold one. 1905. Our temperatures tonight will dip into the 40s, all thanks to this cool air that's going to be pushed into place behind a pair of cold fronts. The first one, the parent low, is bringing some heavy rain with it up towards Maine and Nova Scotia, and we're seeing it taper off now for parts of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, with just a little snow on the backside. As far as us, we talked about this front a few minutes ago, kind of slowing down. Well, watch what happens today. We see some breaks in the clouds, hopefully a little sunshine as we wrap up the day, but by tomorrow, those clouds move back in as this front starts to move back to the north, and what that will do is warm us up. You see the computer model's depiction of this here today. The clouds still kind of with us, but really beginning to thicken up tomorrow. So the cold air is going to be around for a day or so as we see this dip in the jet stream, bringing the cool air across the eastern half of the U.S. But as we wrap up the weekend, here comes the ridge building back in. That's going to bring more warmth and eventually push our temperatures in the mid to upper 80s next week. Inland Marine forecaster is a small craft advisory here today as our seas will be 4 to 6 feet. Inland water is rough with the water temperature at 68. We'll spend some time here on the 7-day forecast because tonight going to be the coolest by far. We'll dip down in the mid to upper 40s, and tomorrow we'll struggle to get up to the 70-degree mark. As we look ahead towards the weekend, our afternoon highs are going to be about 10 degrees above our average of 75, and overnight lows, same idea. We're talking mid 60s here. Now, even though the sun returns over the weekend, it's still going to be a little windy. It'll be breezy with winds 10 to 15 and gusts up to 20 as we start the weekend. Time right now is 10:50. We'll be back with a few more minutes of Fox 4 Morning News.
This is a cool story. A bizarre-looking spiral in the sky had astronomers scratching their heads.
Yeah, that is until they realized what caused it. Jeremy Roth shows us what really caused all that spinning in space.
Take a look at a strange space spiral caught on camera over Hawaii. It was captured by the Subaru telescope in the early morning skies over the Hawaiian Islands. Officials immediately made a connection to a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket launch that had occurred that morning, saying similar surreal swirls and streaks have been spotted following Falcon 9 launches. So maybe not as mysterious, but no less marvelous. A mystery of missing munchies was solved by police in Michigan, and it turns out it was an inside job. A Wyandotte police officer was preparing to enjoy his lunch when he stepped away, leaving his sandwich unattended. It was then, the department says, that 11-year veteran canine cop Ice pulled off an ice-cold crime, snatching the officer's lunch. The department later posted a mugshot of Ice saying he, quote, invoked the fifth and was not cooperating, but politics is perception, people, and with scores of dog-loving social media users backing the pup, the department was forced to drop the charges and even get Ice his own sandwich. This here's a doggone canine conspiracy is what this is. Finally, here's a pair of pups putting on a prance and parade in the worst possible place, a traffic-packed Sacramento freeway. A TikTok user captured the frisky husky duo La-Di-Dan footloose and fancy-free down Freeway 99. Drivers were able to eventually corral the oblivious dogs safely to the side of the road until authorities showed up. The infamous pair are now in the capable care of Sacramento County Animal Services. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
2, 1, engines full power, and liftoff for Starlink 5-2. Go Falcon, go Starlink.
All right, another successful launch from SpaceX. This was this morning from Cape Canaveral. Falcon 9 weighed about 17 metric tons, so that makes this one the heaviest payload ever flown on Falcon. Pretty cool.
Very nice. Too bad we couldn't see it this morning with all the clouds, huh? 4:42 roughly was that takeoff time. And we have got temperatures today, 73 degrees as we stay cool. And we're going to see our temperatures tonight dip down into the 40s as we've got another cool one on the way. Let's check it out because tonight will be by far the coolest in the 7-day forecast as those winds are going to be out of the north. Still a little breezy. You'll need a jacket. And then as we head towards the weekend, we're quickly going to warm up. When I say we have something for everybody, well, I mean it in this forecast. A couple of cool days, still breezy but warm over the weekend, and then we'll be back in the mid-80s. I know this morning traffic was a little rough. We had the rain showers around. I promise you tomorrow should be a little smoother. It's just going to be chilly, but no rain expected for that morning commute.
But don't get used to the chilly temperatures.
Nope,
They're
not at
going
all.
away.
No, just a reminder, I know everyone's excited for Sunday. We got some pretty big games. 3 o'clock is the Eagles taking on the 49ers. And then, of course, here on Fox 4, we also have, who is it? Cincinnati. Who Dey? Bengals.
Well, right. We have the Eagles and the 49ers on Fox 4.
What's the other game that's
The other
playing?
game is the Bengals and some other team.
Yeah, that
Called the Chiefs, right, Steve?
Yeah, we have a Chiefs fan over
Okay.
here. Have a good day,
Bye, guys.
everybody.
Well, traffic has finally cleared here on the Edison Bridge, and everybody's just moving and grooving here on Fowler Street. We'll give you all the details coming up.
Live from Southwest Florida, you're watching Fox 4 Morning News.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for watching Fox 4 Morning News at 10. I'm Chris Shaw.
I'm Amy Wegman. We want to get right to John Barron because traffic is flowing again this morning in Fort Myers, but it wasn't the case earlier this morning. There was a crash on the Edison Bridge.
John, what does it look like now?
Yeah, Amy and Chris, you can take a look behind me and clearly see everything's back to normal. This is what we're used to seeing, especially across 10 o'clock here in Fort Myers. But that was not the case for about 2.5 hours when we saw that sanitation crew having to come out here and try to make sure they clean up the mess that they had out here. And that's what we had when we had the dump truck and the pickup truck that collided. And that's why we had hydraulic fuel all over the ground. And that's why we had sand kind of making its way out here and being spread all over the road. And then they were trying to pick it up. We had the street sweeper as well as the Bobcat kind of spreading it out, making sure it soaked up some of that. So that's all the cause of why we had so much backup that was taking place here on the Edison Bridge and Fowler Street. And they had that blocked off all the way, having to actually kind of get traffic all the way to downtown Fort Myers. And they had blocked off this one right here from 1st Street to Fowler Street. That intersection was completely blocked off for about 2.5 hours. We spoke to somebody who was in a car. He kind of made his way up here. We were talking to him. He said he left his house at 7 a.m. And when we did speak to him, it was around 9:30. So he has been talking about, it was that flow of traffic, this being such a heavy traffic bridge and a roadway, especially for some of those people trying to make their way in that morning commute. Well, that was kind of the problem, but everything's back open, so hopefully we'll be able to see that continue on throughout the day. So that's your morning traffic, and we're going to send it back to you guys in the studio for more of an alert. Here, live in Fort Myers, John Barron, Fox 4.
Well, John, everything you just described created big backups downtown, and there were also crashes on the other side of the bridge in North Fort Myers.
Yeah, so let's check in with Trent because he's monitoring traffic as well. I know obviously we saw the traffic slowing on the bridge, but what about those little side streets in North Fort Myers?
Things finally getting better. Some good news to report. All morning long, we were looking at the south side of that bridge there where traffic, the edge of the bridge, the police officer was diverting everyone onto Edwards there towards the Fort Myers Yacht Basin near the Oxbow restaurant. And now you can see traffic is moving over the bridge. All 3 lanes are open, and we are getting some better reports now as that crash and the cleanup continues. Even the 41 bridge there where we had backups that went all the way up through Pondella, where we had a crash at River Road. Now Bayshore looking a little smoother as well. This was all red this morning, going all the way back towards the interstate as we had accidents all around Southwest Florida. We've even got some better news out towards Colonial and 82. Now there was one crash here that had areas of Leland Heights Boulevard closed down, and it looks like that crash has been allowed to clear. So as we switch gears here from traffic to your forecast, things this morning obviously a little rocky, and you can't help but think that some of that was weather related early this morning.
Okay, so if it was weather related, the crashes are cleared up. Does that mean the skies are clear as well?
Yeah, we got some clouds, but the rain is tapering off. What we've got left of that rain is right here south of Lake Okeechobee between I-75 and US 27. And what's left of that will continue to dissipate here as that front tries to move out of here. It's going to be a slow mover, so even though the rain is tapering off, the cloud's going to be around for a while as we got a much cooler day. But you can see I-75 out towards Lehigh looking a little better. So if you haven't stepped outside yet, we're in the upper 60s. We're not going to go to the low 70s today as our temperatures are going to be rather steady through the afternoon. And it's all due to this north wind, which is picking up. It'll be 10 to 15 miles per hour, a gust of 20 today. And you see those clouds just to our south, even through the evening hours. So as you step outside here later on today, going to be a little windy, a little bit cooler. Our temperature is just a few below our average of 75, but a much cooler night on the way. We'll talk about that in the weekend coming up here in just a bit.
All right, sounds good, Trent. Well, if you live in certain parts of Lee County, there is a hurricane debris deadline coming up. We want to let you know about it. It's for several different areas, so they're listed there on your screen. If you live in one of these areas, the county is asking you to put your storm debris out on the curb by Monday, February 13th. Again, that's storm-related debris. This does not include Matlacha or St. James City. Now, if you live on Sanibel Island, you got a little bit longer. You have until February 20th to set any storm-related debris out on the curb for pickup.
This morning, we want to bring you a story of resiliency, how a group of people built back after Hurricane Ian and are now on the track to success again. It just so happens to involve one of the most important industries here in Southwest Florida, and we'll give you some perspective on that in just a minute. But we want to start our story by going back to the first week or so after the hurricane. Fox 4's Alexandra Rangel went to St. James City. Now, at the time, there was no road on to Pine Island. She came here to Sun Shrimp Farm, a business that, as you can see, was badly damaged. It lost 100,000 pounds of shrimp in the storm. Well, yesterday, Alex was able to drive onto the island, and the outlook here was completely different.
I tell you, it just really, the storm really hit us pretty hard.
But they came back harder, from broken tents to damaged tanks and dead shrimp.
Wow.
Sun Shrimp owner Robin Pearl walked us inside the 8-acre greenhouse.
Our shrimp, they need warm weather, and right now, even though it's cooler outside, it's nice in here.
Warm, I can feel it.
Yeah.
Almost 4 months since Ian, and Sun Shrimp is breeding some healthy shrimp.
They're looking at the quality, make sure that it has good antennas, make sure the animal's healthy.
They're now starting to see the fruits of all the hard labor it took to keep the shrimp that survived Ian alive.
Is that a male or female? That's a male. That's a male, so you can see the male. It has two little sperm packages right here.
Production manager Catherine Lipson makes sure the shrimp are getting fed, that oxygen levels are good, and that water is pristine.
Before we had no roofs, not a lot of metal, all the tanks were exposed.
She says the season has been a successful one.
We saved a lot of shrimp as well, so we were still able to have our big brood stock season, still able to process for the plant, so it's really great what we're able to do.
Pearl says they started shipping to customers in early December.
All those tanks have been restocked.